You're listening to the League Bound Podcast.
He could be a crazy prospect.
Is arguably one of the best players in all of basketball.
Whatever happens, please, for the love of God, do not take another big man.
Hello, and welcome to the League Bound Podcast, where we break down the best draft prospects and the rising stars of the NBA. I'm your co-host, Brandon, and I'm here with my guys, Jake and Cameron. How are y'all doing today?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this episode. We got a little bit of a shake-up in the format, and I think it's going to be a really fun one.
Doing something a little bit different today. Excited to look back at some of the past draft classes and just see where we went right and where we went wrong.
Yeah, so today is going to be a little bit more of a throwback episode where we're just going to kind of do the part of the scouting where you reflect on guys that you talked about. And for this first part, we're going to do a draft class reflection of the 2022 draft class. And for those of you who have been here at League Bound, that was the first ever class that we did. Cameron wasn't here with us yet, but I'm sure he was still very interested in the draft process at that time. And just jumping right in, I think the 2022 draft class has proved to be a very exciting class, and I think we kind of thought that in the moment. You have guys like Paulo, Chet Holmgren, even though he waited a season to play. I don't have everybody off the top of my head right now, but I think it's a class that didn't disappoint us.
Yeah, there's value at the top, obviously, like you mentioned with Paulo Banchero, but even as you get lower into the kind of deeper portion of the first round and a couple second-round guys as well, there's some sneaky, really valuable players that I think us and a lot of the rest of the country were really sleeping on in this draft class.
Yeah, it's still a little early to call it on some of the guys that maybe haven't panned out yet, but there's a lot of guys who just kind of came out of nowhere and broke onto the scene in this class. Like, there's guys like Andrew Nembhard who went 31 that I was a fan of out of college, but I didn't see this type of role, him making big shots on Eastern Conference final stage. Like, I didn't see that. So it's exciting, and I want to kind of get you guys' thoughts on who do you think hasn't broken out yet, but still has the potential to from this draft class.
I'll have Jake answer that one quickly,
Okay.
because that's a...
So I'm looking through the whole draft class right now of the 60 guys that were drafted, and someone that I think still has a lot of potential to break out. I don't know if it's going to be on the current team or if maybe he moves in an offseason and gets to maybe a worse team where they need him to step up more. I'm going with Jaden Hardy out of the G League Ignite. For the Dallas Mavericks, he's had a very limited role, obviously, with Kyrie and Luka Doncic getting the mass of minutes that they get in crunch time. But Jaden Hardy is so smooth and offensively talented. We knew that coming into this class. He dropped a bit with a kind of an underperforming G League performance in the Ignite program. But like I said, I don't know if it's going to be with Dallas or if he moves on eventually and goes to a worse team where he gets to be that maybe number 2 option. But I think he still has a super bright future.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that you brought that up, because I remember we talked a lot about Jaden Hardy coming in. Obviously, I think coming out of that high school class, he was the number 1 player, but he fell a little bit just because of his efficiency and his size. But I think the role that he's had in Dallas, obviously he could play a little bit of a bigger role, but I think it's good for him right now because he's getting to play alongside Kyrie Irving, and I feel like he's a good locker room guy despite what the media says about him, and I'm sure that he's learning a lot from that. You also get to see Luka, who's another good guard, but I feel like his game is more similar to Kyrie, but he's a guy who I could also see taking off just because of he's played some minutes in the playoffs with the Mavericks, and I feel like there is, with guards, Cameron's talked about this a lot, they just take time, and I think he's obviously not a guy who's getting a lot of volume, but I do think that he has the skill set to carve out a great role for himself in this league. I'm still trying to figure out my guy, because one guy I was going to say was Christian Braun, but I think he's kind of already taken off this year. He's averaging like 16 points a game right now. And he's shooting the ball a lot better than he had been to start out. I feel like there's so many guys, though, who have already kind of carved out a role that it kind of makes this tough. Because, I'm looking And even in that lottery, like Usman Jang now, he's starting to get more minutes with the Thunder, and he's starting to kind of come into his own. It feels like guys have already kind of solidified themselves in some way.
Yeah, for me, a couple guys I was looking at was Ty Washington. He's someone who just got called up for the Suns the other night. He got back in some NBA action for the first time in a while. He's someone I think is he's a solid backup point guard option, I think, on a really good team eventually. I just think he's kind of just been missing the opportunity. Another player, I really like Dalen Terry from the Chicago Bulls. He's just a rangy forward guard combo that I think he'll have a little bit more opportunity now that you have guys like DeMar DeRozan out the way, and you might have Zach LaVine possibly on the move in the future. So I think that spot kind of opens up for the Bulls. He'll have some more opportunity to shine. I will call a shot here for a superstar leap of a guy who's always kind of broken out, but injuries, inconsistencies, his team inexplicably drafting multiple players at his position. I think he has a superstar rise coming. I don't think it's necessarily here yet, but I think within the next few years, we'll be looking at a guy like Shaedon Sharpe as a potential star in this league.
That's another guy I was potentially thinking about saying, but he came off like 2 straight 30-point games, so it's like I don't know if that really counts. But yeah, I think he is in kind of a tough situation for him because, like you said, there's just a lot of other guards around him. But I remember being extremely high on him coming out of college, or not college, high school, because he finessed the system. Only did a semester at Kentucky, didn't even play. Said he was going to stay there, but he was clearly lying. And now he's with Portland. Basically went straight from the league out of high school. And I think he has the athleticism, but one thing that was hard about Sharpe was to kind of understand like how he would play at the next level, just because you hadn't really seen him play against, I guess, more tougher comp, but I feel like that's not the right word. But I think what's nice about the recent takeoff that he's had is you've kind of seen him playing more of a ball dominant role, but you've also seen him play a little bit off the ball too. He's like a catch and shoot guy. He loves catching those lobs too. He can create for himself. I think he definitely has the tools to make a takeoff if he does, but I think it's going to take a different situation for him.
Yeah, another guy that's kind of been breaking out recently, traded to the Atlanta Hawks, Dyson Daniels has kind of become like a mini Kawhi Leonard since like he's
up there for Depoy right now. I'm pretty sure.
He's one of the
with all
leaders
those
in
steals.
steals.
He's
right
like
now.
Obliterating everybody else in steals this year. Like he's almost at 6 a game, which is insane. Like that's crazy to me.
The Hawks, I don't want to get too off track, but they low-key got a nice young core because they have Risa Shea, obviously. They have Jalen Johnson, and then they got Dyson Daniels for Murray out of that trade. Mm-hmm. So they've put together some nice pieces around Trae Young, and I'm also forgetting Okongwu too. But they've got a nice little young core going.
Yeah, I think they're starting to build a team that can work around a small ball dominant guard. Like you have a lot of switchable wings who can guard, guys who can get their shot on offense and without necessarily needing the ball all the time, guys who can defend around them. Like they're kind of insulating them in a way and building around them to where I think if they're just like one complimentary star away without having to give up a whole bunch of these young guys. So it'll be interesting what they do in the future.
Okay. Now, kind of getting back into it, I want to ask both of you, who was somebody who hasn't really panned out yet, or that you're kind of, I guess, shocked didn't pan out in this class? Although I do feel like it's still kind of early to make that. I know there's one guy who me and Jake and Brody over here, even our producer, we all talked about this guy not panning out, and he hasn't really panned out yet.
Yeah, you're talking about Johnny Davis for the Washington Wizards. We were on top of this, I mean, pretty much since he was getting that talk as a top 10 pick. We just saw through it as Big Ten guys. We saw him play a ton, and we saw the ups, but we definitely saw the downs. So honestly, not that surprised that he hasn't taken that leap as a key piece for Washington.
I don't want to get on here and celebrate his downfall because obviously that's not what we're trying to do here.
We were right.
But I feel like with Davis, I remember specifically saying on our breakdown that it was probably going to take a little bit of time for him. And just looking at the stats this season, it still hasn't really been coming together for him. And it's kind of unfortunate because obviously he's a Big Ten guy, so you want to see them do well. But I think his play style, it kind of made you realize, like, because he was very heavily a mid-range guy and he wasn't the greatest outside shooter. Like, obviously he could do it, but it wasn't like a strength of his game. And so I feel like now we're kind of, and he's, I don't want to say undersized, but he's not the typical mid-range size, you know?
Bro, his draft day comparison was Devin Booker. That's a tough place to reach as a player, but I don't think any of us here on the podcast thought he would become a Devin Booker level player one day.
What did you think of him, Cameron?
I didn't see Devin Booker. I thought he was going to be solid, though. Like, he really looked good at USA going into his last year at Wisconsin. He had a good year at Wisconsin. Like, I wasn't high on him. Like, I wasn't, like, extremely high, but I thought he was going to be solid. Like, I thought it was a good pick for the Wizards at the time. I'm pretty sure, like, there's something wrong there. Like, his jump shot looking the way it looked for the first few years, like, pretty sure there's something off that necessarily might not have been in his control or we don't know about, but he wasn't necessarily one of the guys I was super high on, though. But a couple guys I was high on that haven't necessarily panned out yet. J.D. Davidson from the Celtics. He is a champion, though. I will say that.
He's cooking in the G League.
Yeah,
that's all he can do, really.
But he was someone I was high on, just that type of athletic guard who had like a decent playmaking feel, like not the best, but he averaged, I think, 6 assists coming out of Alabama. So.
Dude, he was such a that Alabama team was so fun to watch that year. I mean, the amount of highlights that he would put together, the whole SEC, I feel like that year with Jabari Smith as well from Auburn, like that was such a peak year for the SEC, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the other guy would be Kenny Chancellor, another SEC guy. I think I thought he was like...
I thought he could become like one of their... alongside Ja Morant, like I thought that was going to be a 1-2 punch. That was crazy.
I remember they wasted no time because it was like the end of his rookie year. They pretty much waived him like right before the playoffs, and they were like,
"Yeah." I didn't necessarily think he was going to ever be like a starter, but I thought he would at least be able to like be kind of the Tyus Jones replacement because like the writing on the wall with Tyus Jones, like they weren't going to be able to afford him and pay Bane and pay Jackson and pay Josh, so. I thought it was like smart of them to draft him there, and I thought he was somebody that could develop into like a really good second unit guard, but just didn't work out that way and hasn't worked out that way yet.
It seems like his career high with Memphis is that one video of them going through the tunnel and they're all doing the dance moves. Like that was one of the most hyped videos of the year, but yeah, it did not work out, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah, like in that 2022 season, I mean, we spent the entire year talking about a big three in Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, and Paolo Banchero. And 2 of them have panned out, and one of them, he's doing okay. I mean, I think he's still, is he off the bench or starting for them? I'm not sure, but.
Comes off the bench.
Paolo Banchero, he looks like not quite LeBron. Like, he doesn't have that, like, generational athleticism, like, jump out the gym, but, like, there's definitely some, like, similarities in their game. Like, he looks like old LeBron, kind of, but, like, in a younger package. Like, he's someone that I think probably has the highest ceiling of anybody in this class. Like, he's already been an all-star. I think he's a candidate for possibly best player in the league one day down the line. Chet, I don't necessarily think he has the same ceiling, but I think what he provides to the team is just so valuable. And it's like an archetype that we see scouts like coveting now, that big man who can step out and shoot, pass a little bit, and defend at the rim. I'm curious to know where you guys stood amongst the big three when it was happening.
Well, from what I remember, I think Brody was actually the one that was highest on Paolo Banchero going number 1. If I was correct. I was a massive Jabari Smith guy. I thought he was going to go to the Orlando Magic and be basically what Paolo Banchero has been over the past couple of years. Didn't end up happening. I think that was actually a pretty big surprise on draft night. There was talks about Chet or Jabari going 1, and then Paolo Banchero kind of was a late riser, it seemed like, but I guess Orlando knew it from day one. They were going to take him.
Yeah, like that whole day, it was pretty much, okay, Jabari's without a question going to go number one. Then last minute it was like, oh, psych, we're taking Paulo. But I think I was higher on Paulo, but I don't think it was to the extent that maybe Brody was. I was like, I think you can't go wrong with either. That was kind of my mindset. But for Paulo, I think his perimeter game has been a lot better than I anticipated, and I think that's really kind of what separated him. He reminds me a lot of a Melo I can't speak. He reminds me a lot of a Carmelo Anthony, and I do kind of see the comparison with LeBron too. And I think it's so unfortunate that both him and Chet are out with major injuries right now, but I feel like they were both kind of on a tear before up to they both sustained their injuries. But Paulo, he's also a guy who I feel like doesn't really get talked about a whole lot among like mainstream NBA media, because just think to that playoff they had last year against the Cavs. Like, they put that game on C-SPAN. Like, nobody even they had those games on NBA TV. But if you ask me, I think those were games that should have been, all of those games should have been primetime TV, just because you have a young star like Paulo showing out. But I think they're kind of drowned. Obviously, the NBA also has so many stars, it's hard to like figure that out. But Paulo, I do agree. I think he could be up there for one of the best players in the league, and it's not getting talked about enough.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, while I agree, Paulo and the Magic definitely deserve more national TV games. However, that series in particular was like going back to like the early 2000s and watching the series. Like, neither team could score, no one could shoot. Like, it was a mess of a series overall. And
hey, but the fans love defense, right?
no, they don't. Not at all. But
Viewers definitely don't.
Nah, so I understand why they made that decision, but I definitely agree. I would like to see Paulo on national TV a little bit more. I was talking to somebody about this class the other day, and he kind of made a good point. It's kind of like everybody kind of went where they needed to go. Like, I know there was a lot of shuffling at the top. I remember, like, when the report came across that Paulo was going number one, it was like, that came out of absolutely nowhere. Like, he was almost penciled in at going to Houston. So, but they all, let me hold up. So, everybody just kind of went where they belong. Like, Paulo was the offensive engine that the Magic needed at the time. He was the guy that creates all the offense, can be like the number one option on a team type guy. The Thunder didn't need that. They had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They needed someone to open up their offense and like space the court for all of their athletic wings. They got that in Chet Holmgren. And Jabari Smith, I know you talked about you thought he was going to go to the Magic. In hindsight, looking back on it, I don't know how him as a number one option would have worked, just because his handle just doesn't seem to be as far along as you would need it to be for him to be a number one option. Like, I remember there was a lot of like KD comparisons and a lot of like just taller wing that can shoot comparisons, which he's definitely a tall wing that can shoot, but I think a lot of times people discount about KD that makes him so special is that he can really dribble the ball. Like, he has a real guard-like handle and can get to all his spots on the court without turning it over at a high clip.
I almost wonder, though, like, going to Houston, if that kind of was a negative in that aspect of his game, because at that point he was playing with Jalen Green, who was still trying to establish himself. I think Kevin Porter Jr. was still on that team as their other guard, and those guys are super ball dominant, so it wasn't as much of an opportunity for Jabari Smith, whereas Paolo Banchero came into a terrible Magic team, and they kind of just handed him the entire offense. Similar to Jabari Smith, like, they still utilized him as a rookie, but the roles were slightly different, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like one of the major things with Jabari at Auburn was that you kind of got to see him in a role where he's taking a lot of shots. Even though at times, it's weird to say, but I feel like there were times that didn't go to him enough. But I think with, like you said, with the Rockets, it's weird because he kind of had to carve out his role in a different way. Like, you just have so many, they already had a lot of younger guards who are not really passers, I would say. And I think it kind of drowned out what made his game so, what's the word? what made his game really stand out, you know? And I think Paulo, he was a guy who's a little bit more versatile, where it's like, I think he's just more, he's able to pass and create for his guys, but he's also able to just draw attention from his natural presence. Like, even if he weren't having the scoring boom that he's having, I still think he could have had, really, if he went to any of those teams, I think he could have had some sort of all-star type of role, if that makes sense. But Jabari, it feels like he's kind of, hindsight is always 20/20, but looking back on it, he was more kind of like a one-dimensional. I don't even want to say that because he's a great defender. But I just think that the writing was definitely there. It's just hard to know how it's going to pan out.
Yeah, to me, he was always a little more Michael Porter Jr. than he was KD or T-Mac or any of like those number one option offensive engine guys. Like, I think he's just a little more of a, he still has like really good upside. Like, I think he can be an elite role player that can make shots and defend. I just don't think he's the number one option in the NBA.
Honestly, that's fine. Because I feel like,
Yeah, there's only so many of those. Like, there's only 30 teams. So
yeah. And like, you just think about, like, let's just look at this class, right? Like, look at how many guys have managed to stay in the league right now. Like, other than, I don't think there's really been anybody that's gotten released like in the lottery. Because even Johnny Davis, we talked about him, but he's still on the Wizards right now. And it's like, you have so much talent that is at least providing some sort of value right away, that it's like, I think it's just hard. We're gone from the era of the 2000s where it's like, okay, you have a guy who's like so talented offensively that he's just immediately going to become your number one option. And like, look at the Celtics. They have a few different guys who could be a number one option on the team. But it's like, now everybody's so offensively skilled that it's like, you kind of need those players. And you're going to have somebody sacrifice their number one, I guess, being the number one option.
yeah, sacrifice their upside in a
Yeah.
way. Like, only so many guys can turn into stars.
Yeah. So we're going to go back 1 year to the 2021 draft class. And this was the year before we started actually doing League Bound. But we figured it was an appropriate time to start doing like a redraft, if you will, because now these guys are starting to get paid, starting to get their second contracts. And so I think that's always a good time to kind of assess players. And with the 2021 draft class, I think you had a lot of great players in there. You've got Cade Cunningham, Franz Wagner, Scotty Barnes. There's more down the list. Jalen Green's also in here, Alperen Sengun. We're going to alternate 1, 2, 3. And we're going to keep the same draft order. So Pistons, Rockets, just how the original draft went. How do we want to do this? Who wants to go first? I think we should go Cameron, Jake, and then me.
Okay.
Okay. So with the number one pick, I'm not going to do what I want to do. I will take Cade Cunningham again.
Okay.
I'm going to take Cade Cunningham again. I just think he's probably the best fit for this Pistons organization. 6'7", guard. He's starting to break through this season. I think he's shown flashes early in his career. He's gotten hurt a few years, but this year I think the Pistons are kind of starting to look like an actual basketball team. Like, they aren't breaking records for most losses in a row. I think they have a coach that is got them going in the right direction, and I think Cade Cunningham is a big piece of that. He looks like he looks like what we thought he would be coming up.
Yeah, I mean, he was so good at Oklahoma State. I remember when I was getting ready for this draft class, just going through all these first-round guys, and I was watching a lot of Oklahoma State games, and it was literally him and just a bunch of nobodies pretty much on that squad. It was insane to see Oklahoma State competing with other teams in the Big 12 at the time because Cade was going for near triple-doubles sometimes. So I definitely don't hate the Cade Cunningham pick. He's been amazing so far this year as well.
Do you want to get right into the second pick?
Yeah. See, this is where it's tough because it's Houston, and originally they take Jalen Green. I'm a Cavs fan, and Evan Mobley has been great for our team, but I don't know if Houston was looking for like a defensive-minded big. So at this point, are they going to retake Jalen Green, or are they looking further down the board at someone like Scotty Barnes, who I think, is he the only All-Star so far from this draft class? So he's been amazing as well in Toronto. And I think that's probably where we're going to have to go because Scotty Barnes, even though he is known as like a wing, he can still be offensive initiator in a not the same way as Jalen Green where he's hunting his shot, but he can bring the ball up and he can get the offense into system. And I think that's something Houston was obviously valuing, was someone that could lead their offense going forward. And looking back on it now, Scotty Barnes provides a lot more defense than Jalen Green, so he's going to be up there at the number 2 pick.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I'm kind of torn because obviously with Mobley right there, I could do the easy thing, but I don't want to do the easy thing. Ooh. So I think I'm going to go with Franz Wagner. And right now, wow, I'm not really looking so much as the fit for this, but I think right now he's making a serious case to be an all-star again, especially, or not again, for the first time, especially with Paulo out. I know he had a little bit of a, I don't want to say slump, but he struggled from 3 last year, and I know that was kind of a big benchmark for like how his growth will be. And I think right now he's averaging about, let me pull up the stats real quick. He's averaging about 22 points, 5 assists, from 3 shooting 35%. And I think that's all he needs to do to, get in that all-star race contention. I think that he elevates the Magic, especially alongside Paulo. And I think he's going to be a multiple-time all-star when it's all said and done. So I'm going to put Franz in there.
Well, this is before Paulo. Wait.
That is true.
This is before Paulo.
That is true.
But as the next pick, we're running. Maybe not running. It's tough because I feel like Jalen Green has more upside than Evan Mobley, like long term. I think the couple months stretch at the end of last season where he was just obliterating teams is like, I happen to be one of the people who think that's real and that's what he could ultimately be one day. However, it's been a couple years of just only like month stretches here and there. So it's been a very inconsistent few years. I think some of that is that you have Şengün in like his orbit, so it's kind of slowing the team down. I think he's better on a more fast-paced team. Mobley is more of a sure thing to like provide positive value, but you know what? I think we're gonna take the risk. I'm going Jalen Green.
Wow, the Mobley fall is crazy. I think you guys need to watch more Cavs games. Honestly, we're on a 15-game winning streak right now, and he's been a big reason why. He's had a bunch of game-sealing blocks. His offense has taken a huge step. And so here at 5 with Jalen Green now off the board, Evan Mobley is there, but let's say do we think Orlando is still taking a guard at this point? Because they originally took Jalen Suggs, who's been pretty solid, but I don't know, man. I feel like if Evan Mobley was on the board at 5 at this point in the draft,
especially at that moment in time, they would have.
Yeah, this has to be Evan Mobley over the rest of this class. Like Franz Wagner being gone, he was kind of the only other guy in that position. Even maybe like a Jalen Johnson could kind of be up for contention at that point, but he's nowhere near, in my opinion, as valuable as Evan Mobley. So massive falling from 3 to 5, but Evan Mobley is off the board now with the Orlando Magic.
I will give Evan Mobley his respect. I think he's one of the only players in this class that has made an all defensive team. And like you said, he's taking a leap this year offensively. But I just had to put Franz up there. I just feel like the offensive game, I don't know.
It's tough too, because like as a GM, like even I remember like thinking this kind of at the moment. It's like, would I rather have Evan Mobley in this class or be bad again and try and get Chet next year? And I feel like Chet is just such a more, like he frees up so much more in the offensive end and he provides basically the same thing on defense, if not better.
If Evan Mobley was on that Orlando Magic team right now without Paolo Banchero healthy, I think he would be averaging way more than 22. If they told him we need you to carry this team during this stretch where Paolo is gone, I think Evan Mobley could be up at 25 points per game if he was the number one option and they're telling him 20 shots a game minimum.
The number one option.
I disagree.
I'm
not going. I can't.
He's averaging 18 right now behind Garland and Mitchell.
That's about his cap though.
Like I think that's his cap.
I think
18.
I think like 20 point. Like I could see like 20, maybe 22. I don't think he gets to 25. He can't shoot. I need you to be able to shoot.
I think he's more of like a
25.
pick and pop shoot. I don't think. Plus, I'm thinking about the Magic right now and where they're at, and we all know about their offensive. And you brought up the series they had with their offensive struggles. I feel like
There's already no space on the floor.
yeah, I feel like Mobley wouldn't necessarily. I don't know, because I think one thing about Franz too, and why he's having so much success is because he can be kind of like another initiator on the floor. And I don't think Mobley necessarily fits in that. I still think he would definitely be having the same amount of defensive success, but I don't know if his offense would really take off like that.
I kind of do want to go back to your Franz pick a little bit, though. What is up with his shooting?
You picked Jalen Green.
That's true. That's true. Hey, I acknowledge.
Where was Jalen Green picked?
I
Was he
acknowledge
4?
the problem. Yeah, he was 4.
Okay.
I acknowledge the problems with Jalen Green. However, I think his upside is still up there. With Franz, is he a shooter or is he not a shooter?
I think he's just a streaky shooter.
But for entire years,
I think the upside is there though. And I think right now, I think last year was just a bad year.
Evan
What is his
Mobley
upside?
right now on the season, 37.5 from 3.
Okay, but
On
he's
a
not-
lot more
he's-
attempts than his prior
how many
season.
attempts?
A lot more. Dude, he's averaging
How
at least
many is
1 or
over?
2 more per game this season than he was
Okay,
last
1 or
year.
2 more from 0 is how many?
It was not 0, bro.
I'm saying, how many attempts is he averaging?
Let's pull up the stats. Let's
But
pull
also,
them up.
I think an important thing to look at that or to assess that is how is Mobley getting his 3-point attempts too? I think it's probably a lot different from how Franz is getting his.
My thing with Mobley is he can't create the offense. Like I think that's like the next step for him. If he gets that, this is an entirely different conversation. But as it stands today, he like him as a number one, like him without Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell to get him the ball, get him involved, take the attention away, and he's the sole focus of an NBA scouting report. I don't think he has the tools to average like 25. I just don't see it at this point in time. Now, if he,
I don't want to hijack the segment. We can move on, but I think
I'll answer your question though. I think one thing for me about Franz is he's also a very good finisher at the rim too. And I'm just thinking about like everybody else in this class. Like offensively, I think the only other person who I would maybe look at, or the 2 other guys I'd look at, are maybe Green and Sengun for that spot.
so here's my question: what is Franz's ceiling? How good can he be?
I said before, I think he could be a multiple-time All-Star. I'm not saying he's going to be like a number 1 option, but I think that there's a real possibility there, especially with what, and I'm thinking about this from like just what Orlando has now. I think that there's a real possibility, especially if they start winning in the future, that he could earn that.
Yeah, but like, are we talking? This is my thing. I see like Kyle Korver like All-Stars in his future. Like, yes, he's an All-Star because in the NBA they try to reward the best team in each conference.
I'll
with
say
2
like
All-Stars.
reserve, fringe guy, coaches
Yeah,
pick him.
like-
I'm not saying like he's going to be a
Coaches
starter.
pick him.
Yeah,
I'm
like
not saying
coaches
he's
pick.
going to be like a starter. I'm not saying all that.
I think Jalen Green has the potential to be a starter. Does he hit it? I don't know.
Ooh.
It's a gamble, but I think
I wouldn't. If
he
this
has.
were last year, I wouldn't flame. I'm not flaming you now. I wouldn't like come after you for that. But I think it's just taking so
He's
much
had a good
time.
start to the year. He's had a solid year.
But he's still shooting like 30%.
It's so funny to hear Jalen Green starter in the Western. I mean, you got Luka, Kyrie, Steph
this is
Curry.
also projecting for this.
Okay.
Not right now. Kyrie, Curry, they only have so
Yeah,
many
and
years left to play.
My thing too is like, I feel like Jalen Green is missing out on opportunity right now to really solidify himself as that guy. And like, initially I kind of thought the same thing.
I gotta
too.
put
I was looking at it like, man, he's having a great start to the year. But then you look at it, he's still having the same struggles. And like, I just don't think Green right now is going to be, if he wants to be on a championship team, I don't think he's going to be like the number 1 guy. He's going to be like Wiggins.
Jalen Green
I think
is-
he could be a 2 though. I think he could be a 2.
I think a 2 could be fair, yeah.
Okay, Franz Wagner, you think he can be a 2 on a championship
I think
team?
so. I think so.
I think he's a 3 at best on a championship team. I think he's a 2 on a playoff team that makes the playoffs every year but doesn't really get out of the second round. I think he's a 3 on a championship team. And Evan Mobley is a 3 on a championship team on the offensive end.
Okay, we got to keep going because we're at 3:47, so we're about to run out. We're definitely gonna have time for our other segment. What pick are we on? I forgot. Sorry.
We are on 6.
So that means I'm up.
Hey, if Jalen Green's the best the West got after Kyrie and Curry, bro, I mean,
there's Anthony. I feel like Anthony Edwards
There's
and Jalen Green.
definitely
He's like the
Anthony
same thing as Anthony Edwards, but just worse in every category, pretty much.
I mean, that's fair, but I don't know. I think Şengün is really hampering people's I think he's kind of holding him back because they have to slow down. I think the team is built to run. They're built to get out in transition. I think if that's the type of team they were, you've seen what happened when Şengün went down. Not saying that they're better without him, but I think the team just fits better.
Okay, you picked Mobley last, right?
Yes, Orlando is going home with Evan Mobley at 5.
Okay, then for 7, I'm gonna go. Wait, 7.
6, you got the Thunder.
Oh, 6, yeah. I'm gonna go Jalen Suggs. I'm gonna rock with it.
Okay.
I don't think it's something they would have done out of college because he couldn't necessarily shoot it that well out of college, but looking at his game today, he definitely fits that Thunder pass, dribble, shoot, defense mode. Mm-hmm. And now at number 7, we have the Warriors. This is tough because the Warriors need somebody at this point in time to probably progress faster than what Kuminga did. I would be really interested to see how Şengün will work in their system, just as the passing that he brings to them. I think he slows them down, but not in the same way he slows down a Rockets team that's actually trying to get out and run every possession. So I think he's probably the best fit there. So I'm going to go Şengün to the Warriors. Even though I'm not the big Şengün guy, I think he's probably a perfect fit for them.
No, I think that's a great fit just because obviously the play style they had with Curry running the show there and Klay Thompson's gone. But at that time, they still had him, and I think even Jordan Poole was still there at that time. So just having all those guys and him kind of being able to be kind of another, I guess, Draymond Green on the floor where he's out there, playmaking, setting up opportunities for the guys. And he obviously has his own offensive skill set. I think that's a nice little fit.
Yeah, Şengün can definitely clean glass as well. So, if you want Steph Curry to go out there and shoot 10 threes a night, he's going to get those rebounds too. So, nice little pick with Şengün up inside the top 10, which I don't think on draft night people even thought was conceivable. Alperen Şengün top 10.
There were people that loved him, but it wasn't a lot.
Yeah. Here at 8, so the Magic at this point in this redraft, they've already grabbed Evan Mobley. I think at this point they're probably looking for maybe some offensive-minded player, but I think someone that's sticking out other than, I guess, if you're a Josh Giddey believer, which I am not. Honestly, right now, seeing him on the later portion of this first round, I'm going to go Cam Thomas. Someone who has been, him and Dennis Schroeder, they've been putting Brooklyn on their back this year. Why not give him a shot in that top 10? He's been scoring a lot. What do we think about that? Cam Thomas, top 10.
I like Cam. I definitely think it's a little bit of a reach with some of the guys still left out there.
We still got Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, it's still some really good guys out here, like Jalen Johnson, Trey Murphy. There's some really good players. I like Cam. I think he can score it with the best of them, but I don't ever think it'll be particularly efficient.
Hey, we just got Evan Mobley's defense. We don't need any more defense.
I mean, good point, I guess.
Okay, am I up? Who's 9? Who's 9? The Kings? I feel like I'm either going to go one of two guys here. You know what? I'm going to go Jalen Johnson. I was considering Herb Jones just because of his, he's probably one of the best perimeter defenders. But Jalen Johnson's got more of that offensive value. And I think me as a scout, obviously, I'm just going to prefer more two-way guys. Not saying Herb Jones is incapable offensively, but obviously that's not where the strength of his game resides. So I think the Kings are going to take Jalen Johnson here. Again, I'm not really looking more so at the fit, just even though they went for Davion Mitchell, so I did kind of look at the fit, but I'm not stressing too much about the position,
If I'm the Grizzlies, I'm running to the board. I'm taking Trey Murphy. I think he fits perfectly with Ja and the rest of what they have over there. He can shoot. He plays defense. He's long. He's built like kind of a lot of guys they have over there. And, he can really shoot the ball. I get why the Pelicans have to start Brandon Ingram. He's probably a better player. net value, but it's hard because Trey Murphy is so good, and I think he just has another level to his game that he hasn't been able to unlock yet because he hasn't been able to play as much.
Is he hurt this year?
He was hurt. I think he just came back, but I'm not for sure.
Because I'm like, I know the Pelicans are obviously injury ridden right now with.
Well, they're always injury ridden, but yeah.
But it's like absurd this year because they got McCollum out. Murray didn't even make it past the first game because he broke his hand.
So Murphy played last November 15th. He did play. He didn't play on the 16th versus he didn't play on the 16th versus the Lakers, but he did play on the 15th versus the Nuggets. So he is back now.
All right. So I think the talent is definitely at this point. That was what, 10 or 11?
That was
Big 10. I think it's taken a full step down at this point. I think one of the last guys that still is holding on to some decent potential, in my opinion, is going to be Jonathan Kuminga at pick 11. He's had some ups and downs recently with the Warriors, but maybe coming here to the Charlotte Hornets, maybe he's got a little bit in the different future in his future. So
I really like Kuminga. I feel like he was starting to put it together last year down the stretch. Like he just has to. It's hard because he went to a team that was already competing for championships. So it's always hard to find your role within like a team that is already winning. Like you're seeing it a little bit this year with Rob Dillingham. It's like it's kind of there's almost no place for him right out the gate. So it was hard. I think he would probably be a lot further along if he had went somewhere else. But I think that was pretty good value at that pick.
All right, 12.
Oh, Primo went 12.
Yeah. Okay, so if I had the pick before, I was thinking I'll do Herb Jones, but I'm not going to do Jones here just because you have Austin Reeves, went undrafted. He's obviously, I think part of the reason he went undrafted is just because he wanted to play for the Lakers so badly. But I think that obviously we know the offensive skill set that he has. And I think the Spurs, just looking right now, not necessarily what they had back then, but right now they need more offense outside of Wemby, but they also need defense too. But
they need everything.
They do need everything. But I'm going to go with Reeves here.
Pacers at 13. I'm deciding between Trey Man and like maybe BJ Boston. The talent has definitely taken a little bit of a dip. I think it's more like upside swings now. I think I'm going to go with Trey Man. Get the AI tunnel fits going.
Mm-hmm. I got respect for Trey Man because he be wearing those baggy like 2000 shorts, and you know it's nice to see that the NBA is going back a little bit. I love the nostalgia aspect.
Man.
Or hold up, take that back. I'm going Herb Jones. So still there. Herb Jones.
Herb Jones. Okay, so
all right, that was 12, right?
Yep.
All right,
we got two more, right?
13. I'm not a fan of him, but I'm sure people in the comments are gonna get mad that he hasn't been picked yet. I'm gonna go Josh Giddey at 13. He's been a little bit better this year with Chicago. I'm not super high on him, but at some point he's got to go. I don't think he's completely out of the first round or anything from this class. So,
that's probably a good argument that he could have won a couple picks ago. It's just hard fits. Like a primary ball handler who can't shoot is kind of hard for like a ceiling. Like I think Chicago's like catching a lot of people off guard this year. Like no one's going into Chicago or having Chicago come to them and be like, tonight's going to be a tough night. Like,
I mean, he's still a stat sheet stuffer anyway. He's averaging 12, 6, and 6. So,
I mean, he's playing really
Ben
well.
Simmons numbers.
Yeah, but I mean, at some point you need those. And I think where he's at right now, I mean, I think it does,
It works as like a good creator on like a overall bad team, but I mean, so.
All right, let's round out the lottery, Brandon.
Guys still on the
who
board.
have we not taken? I'm trying so hard to make sure we don't forget anybody.
All right, so I'll run through some of the guys left on the board. We still have Davion Mitchell on the board, Zaire Williams. We have
Quentin Grimes,
Moses Moody, Corey Crispert, Trey Mann. We have Kai Jones and all his issues. We have Isaiah Jackson, Josh Christopher, Sharif Cooper, BJ Boston. We have any guys who... Oh, Ayo DeSumo is still there. Greg Brown is still there. If you think a change of scenery would have helped his career out. You have...
Okay, I got my decision.
Also, before, just because this might change it, Aaron Wiggins is still there.
I did see that.
Jay Huff is also there still.
That's who I was looking up to. He's had a little decent year.
He just got his chance. He just got his chance.
Another mess up by my Lakers. We just give away great players all the time. But
those summer league highlights, oof. Even his regular season highlights. I'm gonna be boring. I'm gonna just go with the same guy, Corey Kispert. Corey Kispert. I think he's a great.
Well, I guess not.
The other guy I was thinking was Wiggins, so I had him on my radar. Actually, let me think about this some more.
I'm assuming we're only doing the lottery.
Hey, in the NBA, when you make a pick, you kind of have to stick with it.
I did change one of my picks though.
That's true.
I'll make an argument here for Wiggins.
He's not having the greatest shooting season right now. He's shooting 33%.
But last year he shot the cover off the ball.
Yeah, and I think history shows he's a phenomenal. Plus, it's still early, so I'm not trying to I'm gonna rock with Corey. Keep it the same. I know I'm boring, but so that does it. We did our 2021 NBA redraft. We can't wait for y'all to flame us in the comment section.
I just know I'm going to see my name at least 20 times in the comments, bro.
I feel like
I put the cape on for Evan Mobley. I can't even lie.
I'm not gonna lie. I can see the slander coming for the Jalen Green pick, and I don't care.
I think Jalen Green is just a polarizing player to begin with. So many different thoughts. Somebody's going to come for all of us. It comes with the territory. How do you feel?
Hey,
bro is scared.
Not really.
I'm dishing out names this episode. We're finally putting the name graphics up.
Nah. We will.
Yeah, they can't be like that last dude.
Nah, cut that part out. But nah. I think the good part about it is there's still a lot of time with a lot of these guys. We'll end up seeing. We'll be able to look back in 3 or 4 years and see who was right and who was wrong. I still think there's a lot of time left for a lot of these guys. I'm really high on BJ Boston, who's just now getting his shot after sitting behind all of the litany of Clippers forwards for the last few years. So I'm excited to see how he's going to pan out with the Pelicans. There's just other guys who have been in and out of rotations, like Delano Blandon's actually playing pretty decent for Portland. There's some guys here that I think we could be looking back in a couple of years and be like, we probably should have included him.
Even if you look at, I feel like this could change a lot too, just at the end of the season, because I feel like somebody's gonna have Cade could have another great year, but he's the number 1 pick, so that doesn't do much. But somebody could have a career year and it just changes everything. Jalen could finally start shooting efficiently, and maybe I put him number 1. You never know.
Hey, Evan Mobley about to go for a 30-burger against Boston on Tuesday. Show y'all that he could be that number 1 option over Franz.
Y'all streak ends Tuesday.
No way.
And the Cavs streak ends Tuesday. But there's still some guys we haven't even mentioned yet that are still quality guys. Bones Highland is still there. Santi Aldama for the Grizzlies, 7-footer who can step out and shoot a little bit.
Hey man, Luka Garza from Iowa.
Yep, and that's the end, guys. We're going home.
Quentin Grimes has been pretty solid this year as well for Dallas. So that was someone I was looking at if we were going to keep doing this draft. But I feel like we rounded out a pretty solid. There was some movement in that top 14 picks. But overall, I feel like, honestly, the guys who went in the top 14 were more often than not correct.
Mm-hmm. So who are some of the guys in this class that you guys were high on when it happened, but just were absolutely wrong about?
Well, I was very, very high on Jalen Green coming in before that. I think the G League situation didn't really help because he played those limited games and they did the G League bubble. And so you only got a month to scout him and really watch him. But I think I was still just high on him from the stuff he did high school too. Jalen Suggs was a guy who I was kind of like,
He's been really good. Like really, really good these last couple years.
yeah. But like I know coming out of the draft, I was a little bit skeptical, especially because at the time I remember they had so many guards. Like they still had Markelle. They had just drafted Cole Anthony. But somehow those guys are, Markelle's obviously not with the team, but Cole and Jalen they're providing a lot for that Magic squad.
For guys that I was high on, I feel like I remember watching LSU and Cam Thomas a couple of times, and he would go off for crazy numbers. So I was like, that'd be pretty cool if he could score like this in the NBA, and he's shown that on certain nights he can actually do that if he gets up enough shots. But I was similar to Brandon with the G League. I was really high on Jonathan Kuminga. There was some talks that, as a Cavs fan, that if we didn't get up in that top 3, that he could have been someone at 5 or 6 that we were looking at. And I was pretty excited because he had some pretty cool highlights with the Ignite. He had some nice dunks. There was maybe a ceiling if his jumper improved, but so far with the Warriors, there's been improvements, but it's not been exactly what you expected from someone like Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah, I was really big on guys like Sharif Cooper, BJ Boston, who's starting to find his footing. I haven't sold my BJ Boston stock yet. I'm still holding on. Scotty Lewis is another guy I really liked. Zaire Williams. There was a couple guys that just haven't quite panned out yet that I was high on, but Josh Christopher was another one. I was also pretty high on him.
That was a name, like, we're looking at it. I see Josh Christopher at 24. I forgot, like, he had a pretty decent freshman season at Arizona State. I was like, did he really go first round? Because he's not really doing much in the NBA anymore.
Well, he is with the Heat now. He's with the Heat.
Right.
So.
Jake, I know you're forgetting somebody you were very high on.
Who's that?
Jericho Sims.
Oh, dude, a lot of those Texas bigs, him and Kai Jones, they had some crazy highlights.
Yeah, because I remember
Greg Brown is also in his class.
Dude.
He was somebody.
Greg Brown.
Yeah, you were high on
Texas had some.
Yeah.
They were like that.
They lost did they lose in the first round this year? I want to say because this was the year that Shaka got canned.
Yeah, this team, I'm pretty sure that Texas team underperformed. We can look it up again. But while we do that, who are some of the guys all time that you were just very excited for, guys you had all the stock in the world, and they just
As
let
a
you
Kansas
down?
fan, Josh Jackson.
Man.
I fell for it, man. I fell for the highlights. He was shooting like 38% from 3. He was like kind of a stretch guy, but he had the athleticism to do it all. Then he got to the league. Obviously, I think he had issues off the court as well. And with everything going on in Phoenix, he wasn't able to make it happen. But I don't know, man. I'm a Kansas fan, but there's a lot of guys who I feel like just were supposed to go into the league and kind of be phenomenal players, but just didn't really find that role.
Yeah, for me, he's still a very valuable player at times, but I was so high on Cam Reddish. I thought he was going to be someone in the top 5 in that class still, even after the freshman year that he put together. And so far, he's kind of resulted into a 3-and-D wing, which still can provide value. But I really thought that Cam Reddish was going to be someone who comes in, regardless of where he was picked, and be, either the 1 or 2 option on a pretty good team.
We all know what Anthony Edwards said.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys were right. That Texas team was the number 3 seed in the East region. They were upset by Abilene Christian in the first round. They definitely kicked Shaka to the curb. After that year, he's found his footing at Marquette. Yeah. Somebody I was really high on that didn't quite pan out was Kevin Knox. He, as a Kentucky fan, he was like an automatic mid-range, like floppy set. Like he was just, I felt like they ran that play 1,000 times that year. They would just sit him there on the baseline, run him off a double screen, catch mid-range, and most of the time it was pretty good.
Hey, Kevin Knox was drafted before Shea.
That, I will say, Shea is somebody I had called very early. I remember telling somebody that he was going to start before Quade Green on that Kentucky team eventually, and he was somebody that I won't say I saw him becoming what he is today.
Oh, so you knew he was going to...
Nah, I didn't know he was going to be 30 points per game, but I thought he was going to be somebody who had a long NBA career. Like I always kind of knew he was really good. To me, he was the best player on that team, but I also thought like Kevin Knox was somebody who was going to have a long NBA career, and he's still fighting to like stick around in the league, but it just hasn't quite went the way I thought it would go.
That's the end of our League Bound episode. Before we go, I want to give a quick shout out to Norin Rad, because you be in our comments. We see you. We appreciate you. You are our biggest fan, man. So we just wanted to show love here at League Bound. But other than that, man, yeah, it was a great episode. We got to do some reflection. This is kind of like my favorite part of actually doing scouting, just going back and like looking at things that you had said in the past, or you know what you thought about guys. And I think that's where you really learn as a I guess fake scout, you know. But thank you guys for tuning in, and see you guys next time.